welcome back to another Japan Book Hunter. And today I'm talking with Dave from West Coast Adventures. He's a homie, he sells comic books, I sell manga. We're gonna sit down and talk a little bit about some rad pickups that we've got recently, how we found them, what we got, and what we're gonna do with them. And this is something we're gonna try to do regularly. And I do know he's gonna be coming to Japan soon, so expect more videos like this. Let's go.
Welcome everybody to another. No. Hi everybody. Welcome back or welcome to a new show starring me, Dave, and our friend, the man on the other side of the Pacific Ocean, Sean, aka Japan Book Hunter. Hello, my friend.
Hey, brother. How you doing? This has been a long time in the making. We've been talking about doing this forever, and we finally found the time to get it done.
That is right. I'm excited too, especially because after we shoot this in a couple of weeks, we'll be meeting in person for the first time when I fly over to Tokyo.
I'm excited to have you over here. It's rad. You're going to be staying right near my office, which is really cool, right near the bookshop.
Yeah.
And I was in Seattle last month, but I was only there for one day on a quick kind of hop over, and we just didn't have a chance to meet up, which was a bummer. So now that you're going to be out here for almost 3 weeks, right?
Yeah. I'm exciting for that.
We're going to go do some book hunting.
Oh, we're going to hunt. We're going to hunt and gather and gather and gather. So that's the gist of this show that I kind of thought would be a neat idea to share with our respective audiences. That's you. Wait, hold on. That's God. That's you. I'm just like trying to point at it and that's you. And so what I thought would be a cool thing, because we both do the same thing, just in different countries. We hunt for books and we resell them to our customer base. We also try to, I guess for lack of a better term, teach people what's cool about these books or what's cool about these specific things, finding the rare, the weird, the stuff you just don't see every day. And I thought it would be interesting if we did a monthly or a quarterly show about 5 choice finds in our, last couple of weeks or months of hunting.
Yeah. And, just like you said, we're doing the exact same thing, just like our techniques are different, our countries are different, but we're trying to showcase rad comics and rad manga, rad books, things adjacent to comics and art, to people that might not otherwise know about it, So especially in my case for the Japan stuff, a lot of stuff people don't know about until I show it to them. And then they're like, well, that's rad. I really want that, But if not someone out there showing it to them, they don't know it exists.
Correct. And because we are able to find things from different decades, different entire eras, I think that is one of the things that I find to be the most joyful thing for myself and also for my audience is being like, oh, I didn't know this existed. Let's, here's your chance to buy it. And they'll say, oh, Dave, I didn't know this existed. I mean, and I've said that to you. I don't, there's a lot of stuff even just in the Marvel Japan world that I didn't know existed that you have hyped me and turned me on to.
And we're going to be hunting some of that when you get out here.
That's right.
For sure.
Yeah. So I think we should just start off, and I just want to say, obviously, but I can't not say it, is don't forget to like this video, subscribe to both of our channels, check out japanbookhunter.com, and I also have a website, westcoastadventures.com.
Yes. And of course, both of us are on all the social medias and stuff, and we appreciate the support. But yeah, let's get into it, brother.
All right. Well, why don't we let you kick it off?
Okay. So like a lot of people always ask me like where I source my books from and where I find them. And there's a bunch of different ways I do it. I try to avoid any big box stores because I mean, if you want to buy from a big, like a Mandarake or from a Kinokuniya, you can. Plus, since I'm buying underground niche retro stuff, it's just not available a lot of times. You really got to get out in the streets digging or going to dealers that creating relationships with bookstores, and that's what I do. So one thing I do is I have a circle of collectors here in Japan, and one of my friends, he wanted to get rid of a lot of his horror collection, so I got a bunch of stuff off of him. And one thing that I got recently was some Kawashima Norikazu.
Okay.
Like horror manga, Hibari Hit Comics. Of course, Hibari Hit Comics was one of the major rental comics in the 50s and 60s. And then they kind of moved over to focusing on horror comics in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s until they went under. Yeah, this one's a really rare one. I want raw blood. I want your raw blood.
That's kind of in line with a book that you sold me called "There's a Cursed Face on My Back."
Oh, that's an awesome one. I think
Yeah.
that might have been Koga Shinichi, but this one I actually got from a friend, and he was getting rid of his whole Hibari Hit Comics collection. I went over and kind of dug through it, and I was like, you know what? I'll just take it all. Just
There
take it
you
all off of your hands. So keeping in touch with friends, local friends that are buying and collecting, that's one way to find the paper gold.
And in line with what you were saying, I source my stuff from buying collections, mostly buying collections from people, entire collections. Sometimes I will travel around. What should I say? Not sometimes. A lot of times I travel around to other states, other countries, and I hit stores because I'm more inclined to visit the shops than try and hunt collections. But where I live, it's easy for me to buy boxes and boxes of comics, pick them up and bring them home. And so one of the collections I bought very recently that was in northern Washington off of the coast on one of the islands was this amazing collection of hardcovers, signed and trade paperbacks, stuff that Graffiti Designs put out in the 80s and 90s. One of those books was this Vic Blood, a classic story by Harlan Ellison, famed sci-fi writer, and by the artist Richard Corbin, who is one of the greatest artists of a generation and of all time. But this is a leather-bound signed edition out of 1,000 copies right there, signed by
Ooh,
Ellison.
amazing.
Yeah, and Corbin. And the thing is that like this collection and the way that I do things is if I'm going to keep something for my PC, my personal collection, I've got to make sure that this collection is going to at least equal and net me in the positive eventually. I'm
Yeah.
already in the positive, so this one gets to go into my PC because it's
Oh, nice, nice.
I'm a Corbin collector thanks to Ed and Jim always preaching the gospel of it. And Ellison is no longer with us either. So this book, there are no more, besides 1,000 copies, there's never going to be any more signed copies showing up. I think that's one of the things. It's like, I didn't know this existed. And if I ever sell it, I get to talk about it beforehand and people get to know that this thing does exist. You probably can only find it in the secondary market anyway, on eBay,
Yeah.
but I can always offer a better price.
Yeah, I'll do that a lot. It's not one of the books I'm showing today, but I had a Makoto book that I picked up recently at a shop. Got it home. I was actually planning to sell it. Open it up, signed by the author, by the artist himself, and he's famous for Mutant Hanako manga, but also he's like he has shows at the National Museum, like
Wow.
installations, giant oil paintings, giant acrylics. So he's like an all-around artist, not just a comic book artist. But once in a while you get lucky, get home and open one of those books up and you find it signed. It's like,
We're going to talk about that because we have a term for it. One of my friends coined it. It's called the signature lottery. And it's when you open up a book and you hit the lottery and there's a signature. You know what? I will go next and explain that very recently. You're going to see two pieces from this collection. You're also going to see two videos on my channel about me unboxing this collection. But I bought a storage locker maybe 20 miles away from my house. And I didn't buy the storage locker. I bought a collection from a storage locker from a guy who was getting rid of his stuff. And in it was a lot of Todd McFarlane books. He used to own a comic store, co-own it in Puyallup with his brother-in-law. So you'd find a lot of signed books. So I saw a price sticker on it. And it said signed by Todd McFarlane. And sure enough, I opened it up. And first page, this Amazing Spider-Man 313, one of my favorite covers of all time. But
that's an amazing cover.
It is. The lizard cover is just fantastic. But what the cool thing is I got multiple books that are signed on the first page by Todd McFarlane from this one collection that I didn't know was in there. And it's one of the things I really do love about buying collections is the unknown. It's the same thing that we both love about the hunt. You walk into the store and you don't know what's going to be on that shelf. You don't know what walked into that store over the course of the week that you weren't there. And when you're looking at a collection that's been in storage for half a decade, you don't know. You just
don't know what's been in there. Yeah. That's amazing. I know you're a huge Todd McFarlane fan. I am too, because I grew up in Seattle and Spokane, Washington. Of course, Spokane, Washington, right? So as a kid, I was a big Todd McFarlane fan. Anyone local, especially coming from when you're in Spokane in high school, like a little town and everything, like the David Lynch, Todd McFarlane, it's like big inspirations for us when we're in a little town, with not much to do. So that's the score.
And the last thing I didn't even realize that this was signed. And I pulled it out and I put it to the side because I used to have this on my wall, all these posters from this poster book. And then I
Mhm.
look and I'm like, oh, it's signed on the cover by Todd.
Nice.
2 copies in that collection
Both
of this.
signed?
Both signed. So one of those will be for
Jeez,
sales
jeez, that's a
at some point.
score. Oh man. And of course, like the sign stuff, like it's a lot of people want it because I mean, Todd McFarlane's obviously around, but when you talk about like Ellis or these other guys that are not, with us anymore,
Yeah.
then really like it's a treasure if you're a huge fan, if you're a huge Corbin fan, if you're a huge fan of somebody, someone and you can get something signed, amazing.
Yes. Yes. And it's always that signature lottery surprise. So what's your next item?
Yeah, actually, speaking of that, like just not knowing, like I had a friend in town from my Discord. We've been doing a Japan Book Hunter Discord for some years. My homie Jack was in town and I took him to so a lot of times I'll go to small mom and pop shops that I've been going to for 10, 15 years. They know
Yeah.
me, they know what I like, tell me if they got something in that maybe I'd be into. We went to one town about 40 minutes out of the city.
Mm-hmm.
There's 3 bookstores, and one of the bookstores I hadn't been to for about 2 years. It's a little bit away from the station, and I usually go kind of mill around the station, and I was like, you know what? We need to go over to this bookstore.
Yeah.
It had been so long that I couldn't even remember where it was. I had to like look on Google Maps, and I was like, God, I've been to so many bookstores in the last 2 years, and they had some gold. I mean, they had a few really rad things in there. So sometimes, if you're going to the same shops over and over, you kind of know what to expect.
Sure,
If you're going
sure.
monthly or something like that, but there'll always be some new gems that they get in when you haven't been for 2 years.
Oh, it's a whole different store.
Yeah. So one thing that I was able to find was Memories in English by
Yeah.
Katsuhiro Otomo. This is the UK press version, Mandarin press. I think they're the same ones that did the Domu version out of the UK. And it's very rare for me to find English manga in Japan. Of course, like
Of course.
so
That makes
it must have
sense.
been, it must have been maybe an expat that had brought it over from the UK, or somebody who had ordered it at the time from the UK, and then somehow it ended up in this stack of Japanese manga. And so that was a score. And then another one that I found at that same shop was a beautiful copy of Hansel and Gretel by Katsuhiro Otomo. These covers are notorious for sun fading.
Sure.
So usually they'll have like a line on them, or the spine will be all faded or something. It's something about this green. It just sun fades easily. So finding a nice, crispy, clean copy, score. Definitely a
Yeah.
score.
Do you think the sun fading also is because it's oversized and it sticks out of a bookshelf? So that's the piece that would get sun faded?
Exactly. So sometimes you'll have like the line here, the
Yeah.
line here from where it's been sticking out of a bookshelf and getting hammered by someone's sun. The sun outside, not
Yeah.
their sun.
Yeah. No, that's a weird statement if you didn't clarify it.
Yeah, so like that, and then of course, then going to a couple of my other friendly shops where I know the owners. One thing that I always do is I always just ask them to open up the showcase, and I dig through their showcases. They put the rare and expensive stuff in the showcases, right?
Yeah.
And so I was kind of saw in the back of the showcase some stuff, and I was like, hey, what's that back there? Those look like Jaguar books, and I found 2
Oh, wow.
Jaguar books. These are pictorial books. This one is Encyclopedia of Japanese Yokai. And this one is the Encyclopedia of the World of Monsters, or the Bizarre, or...
What years are those from?
Those are 1972.
Wow.
So beautiful. So they actually did, I believe in the mid 2000s, they did some reprints of these, but it just doesn't have that 1972 ink, paper feel, quality. Usually these are hammered too, because these were kids' books. So the kids draw in them, they damage them. They're usually in awful condition, just completely awful condition. But so finding them in almost perfect condition like that, really rare. I'm actually, at the moment, we're going to be doing another Instagram live manga, just focusing on manga and books, coming up in another week or 2. So I've been going out trying to hunt the rare stuff for that little event that we're planning on doing, and I was stoked to find those. Yeah, I mean, it's like I did one for art last week for a bunch of the original art I have, but of course, most of the people that follow what I do are here for the books.
Sure.
So yeah, gotta bring the heat.
It's the same with me. I try to integrate original art in sometimes, and it's just it's not that people aren't interested in it, it's just not in their means monetary, or they're just not ready to dive into it.
Yeah, it really is a thing where it's like you either have to be really into that artist to want their original art, or and you have to be able to have the space. So one big problem for me here is I think I put up 25 pieces for sale because I have no more wall space, and they're just sitting in the kitchen of my shop, just like not being appreciated.
Yeah.
So I thought, getting them out to people is more important than me just sitting on them.
Right. The hoarding never helps when you're a seller.
No. Plus, there's an auction coming up in November, and I want to buy some more art and sells.
That's right.
Yeah, I might be dragging you with me to that, but
I'll be going.
That should be fun. That's fun.
Yeah, I'll do this real quick. Very recently, I was on Facebook, just doing my daily search, Facebook Marketplace, see if anybody local selling anything, and I saw a guy who was selling like 2 crates of comics. I saw a couple things in there, and I was like, you know what? It's cheap enough. Let me go look at it. And I got there. He's a video game reseller. He had some comics. Didn't really care about them. But then I turned around. There was this huge box of unopened vintage trading card packs, and in that I saw some of these. I think I got 10 of them total. This is a 1995 Marvel Masterpieces, what they call like a hanger pack. We call them rack packs when we were kids. But they would sell them in retail stores. You wouldn't really see them in comic stores, but they would be in like Kmart and Walmart and those kind of big box stores. These things are so rare, let alone they're 29 years old, but they sell for about $100 each. And I did not pay anywhere near that for the collection of unopened packs. And that's the thing, like, when I see stuff like this, that's, tangentially related, or, just a sister relation to comics, I buy it because, if you collect based on your childhood and stuff like that, you're going to have some interest in owning some vintage packs like this. And it was just one of those things where it's kind of like when you do like some PVC toys, or we're talking about artwork, or if, you're doing things that are related to manga, most of our audiences are going to be somewhat interested in them. Or some of our audience is going to be really interested in that.
Yeah, I do the same thing. If it's comic or manga adjacent, for example, like a real cool Hideshi Hino figure, or like a rad Miyazaki postcard set, or something that's from an exhibition that was kind of limited. If it's something like that, then I like to buy them because there are the people out there that are big Miyazaki fans or Ghibli fans, and they would really like to get their hands on some goods that are just not available anymore.
Exactly. And 1995 is a long time ago at this point.
Yeah, that's the wild thing. It's like, for me, I grew up in the 90s,
Sure.
So a lot of the stuff, like, I have memories of, especially when I'm out digging like VHS, like old animes and stuff like that. And I start to forget that these things are vintage now.
Yeah.
We're 30 years old. Yeah, we're vintage. I wonder if I'm worth more now.
Yeah, I think it's with humans, it's the other way around.
Oh, bummer.
So I thought that was a pretty interesting thing.
For restocking, I do sometimes buy stuff online for restocking. Sure. The problem is that if I buy it online, I can't be guaranteed about the condition and the quality and stuff. I mean, like just looking at a few photos online, or sometimes just one photo. So whenever I'm out at the shops and I can find something like a nice Spidey set.
Ah, yes.
Of course, Japanese Spider-Man. There are 5 different editions of this. 2 Bunko editions, which are the small ones, right, and then 3 Tankobon editions like this. This is my favorite. I've talked about it 100 times, but I can't stop. It's the Sunwide Comics edition. The original ones were put out by Sun Comics, which is the same company, but then for the reprints, about 10 years later, Sun Comics puts out Sun White editions, so they're more condensed. Originals, there's 8 in the original Tankobon series, there's 5 in the white editions. Okay. But in the originals, they have the origin story, Ryu gets bit by the spider.
Yes.
All that stuff. Sun White edition, it just opens with him daydreaming about, it's weird. He's daydreaming about a girl at school doing something in the dark in his room to himself. It's pretty wild.
Who knew Spider-Man in Japan was a little raunchier? Well, everything in Japan is a little raunchier, I guess.
I was talking about that with someone. So, like, Hirai was doing the story writing for it for the first 3 or 4 Tankobons. Ikegami Ryoichi, of course, famous for Lone Wolf and Cub. He was doing the art, and then in the middle of it, Hirai drops out, and then Ikegami just finishes it on his own. And that's when it gets weird. And then when they do the Sun White editions, they kind of move the stories around and stuff.
Yeah.
So like, I think without having a little bit of direction in there, he started getting freaky with it.
It just went weird. I'm looking forward to picking up maybe a set of that when I'm over there.
Yeah, so these ones I had actually found online. This actual set I gotten online, but I like to get them in the shops when I can. Personally,
Yeah.
I do like people ask me, and yeah, sometimes I do find stuff online. There's a few websites here in Japan that don't ship overseas. You have to have a Japanese credit card. You have to have a local address. So, and they're one of them is like a conglomerate of small bookstores. They can't run their own website, so they come together into this one kind of like online shopping mall for bookstores. And I'll buy from them sometimes because I know that the money's going not to Amazon, it's going to a small bookstore in the end.
Sure. And it's funny because people use eBay and they find great stuff on eBay. They find okay stuff on eBay. I like buying in person because American collectibles are so condition based. I just don't want to deal with it. And I don't want to pay shipping and tax. Like buying in person is such a great thing. But Japan, for me to buy over online for Japan, it's tricky. Using you as the middleman is exactly the way to go.
Well, I mean, that I try to sell everything in very good to excellent condition. And, Japan, it's an island country. So some of these like 30, 40-year-old books, it's really hard to find them in decent condition,
Yeah.
Like, I mean, even like these are 25 years old, So especially if it's from somewhere like Kyushu or Okinawa where it's super hot and humid in the summer times, those books don't hold up very well. And the other thing, since we don't do CGC grading, like there's no grading system here in Japan, then there's less, what do I want to say, less motivation for people to keep things in pristine condition.
Sure.
So that makes it more difficult.
Well, that Washington, at least Western Washington, is actually one of the most perfect places for paper because there's no humidity. You don't have to deal with anything. It never gets too dry, hot. In the eastern part of the state, it might be different. But in line with that storage locker guy that I just bought a collection from, half of that collection was magazines. I got 9 boxes of Famous Monsters of Filmland from this guy. And it's just so interesting because, and I will be dropping, and by the time this comes out, I think both videos are going to be out, but he bought multiple copies of like he was buying, I have 10 copies of this or 8 copies of this King Kong with the Basil Gogos painted cover. I got about 6 copies of this. This is another Basil Gogos painted cover, and that's a Tuscan Raider. So
rad.
Yeah, and these magazines, and I learned a lot about them. This is the beginning of fandom in the horror world. This magazine starts in the 50s, the late 50s, before there was any publications about horror movies and horror movie culture. And it's just very interesting because when I buy collections, I rarely see people speculating on magazines. You see people that collect them, but this guy was buying multiple copies of issues.
Because he was thinking to himself, in 20 years, these are going to be worth some money in 20 years.
Yeah, and there's several Godzilla covers in this collection. And like I said, Basil Gogos is foremost the cover artist for a lot of what came out on this on the covers for this magazine. He's most known as that. And it was the magazine was started by James Warren, who also I think published Creepy and Eerie, and also Forrest J. Ackerman, who was the leader of he was
the master of monster movies and everything adjacent.
So it's just interesting when I buy collections from people, I get a piece of their personality. And I talked to this guy for a while. He was different, let's just say that. But the more you look through the more you look through the collection, the more you're like, wow. Like it puts into perspective that how I collect in a different way when I start seeing how other people collect and how many copies of things that they buy. Like there are some things that I own multiple copies of, but it's like few and far between. I'm happy with just the one. That's
how I am in my personal collection. Of course, space is a premium here in Japan. So I've actually, the last 2 days been going through my personal collection, yanking books out. I'm trying to slim down about 100 books out of my personal collection, putting them up on the website for sale. And some of these books, I bought 10, 15 years ago, but like I've read them and my tastes have changed over time.
Sure.
I want to make room for some other stuff that I'm looking at buying for myself, for my PC,
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, sometimes you just have to kind of survey everything. For me here, I have to kind of survey everything, decide what's important to me and what I can let go. And yeah, having multiple copies of anything, just not possible.
Yeah, I mean, McFarlane's pretty much the only thing I own multiple copies of. Like I'll have like signed and different variants, a newsstand or direct, but that's it. Like I don't have 10 copies of the same book in my personal collection. It's for sale if I have that many.
There are, I lied. There's a couple things. For example, Kaze Shinobu's Ryu, the strongest man on the face of the planet. I have every edition ever put out.
But they're different. Each one's different.
Each one's different. Yeah, there's a 2 tankobon, then there's the omnibus, and then there's the updated omnibus, and gotta have them all. Right, I see it. I see him right there. So amazing. I see a couple other books I got you back there too.
Yeah, everything you bought me is on that wall. Everything I bought from you is on that wall. It's
yeah. Thank you, my brother. Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, speaking of which, really quick.
Yes.
Sometimes I also get stuff from America. From things like DaventureCon. I won this at DaventureCon. I also got some other stuff from you, of course, too. And I had you ship it to my parents' house in America. I picked it up last month. Thank you, sir. Much appreciated.
Oh, well, thanks for being
the only slab I own.
There you go. Well, thanks for being a part of it, and thanks for supporting the raffle and the 2 charities. I actually have something for you to. I have a couple things to bring you when I see you in Japan, but I won't tell you what they are. We'll let it be a surprise. A surprise. All right, so we each have one item left.
Go ahead.
All right. So this is a big PC item that I obtained from Comics Place in Bellingham in Washington, the most northwestern store in the entire continental United States. It might even be the most northern store, but I don't know my latitudes and longitudes. But Eric Larson, creator of Savage Dragon, classic Spider-Man artist, co-founder of Image Comics, he is somebody I've had on my show a bunch of times, but he used to live up there. The store that he frequented, and I think it was called King Arthur's Comics, that eventually becomes the Comics Place in Bellingham. When I was up there earlier this year, I became friendly with the owners, Django and Jeff. Shout out to them. Great store. Check them out. They showed me some artwork that was from when he was a younger kid, probably about 17 or 18, that he had left behind at the shop, and they just inherited it. I surprised Eric by showing him some of those photos of that artwork at DaventureCon when he was on. Cut to a couple weeks ago when I was able to buy one of these pieces of a pro comic book artist, Eric Larson. And, he's a huge Kirby fan. He's a big Jack Kirby fan. And you could see the Kirby Crackle on display, prominently on display. This thing is huge. It's, 16 by 20 or whatever. And I get to own this and be the keeper of this amateur artwork from a guy who goes on to shape the industry for better by creating Image Comics. And, he's still writing and drawing Savage Dragon to this day. And it's just you never know what you're going to find when you walk into a shop. And then furthermore, you never know what you're going to find when they bring you upstairs and show you the part of the shop that only the employees get to see. Yeah.
And that's the thing. It's that's why you really need to make relationships with your local comic book stores and the comic book stores that you're hunting at. The books for me at bookstores that I'm hunting at, because they have lots of stuff in those back rooms that's not out there on that, that floor,
Yeah.
So, and even here in Japan, because again, like I always say, space is a premium. You go into a little bookstore and they'll, in the very back room behind a curtain, there'll just be stacks and stacks of books back there because they don't have enough room on the shelves for them. They got to sell books to put them out there. So you become friends with them. You start telling them, hey, I'm looking for something like this, something adjacent to this. you never know, they might have it in the back room.
Yes, and furthermore, in that, it's not even. There's also a factor of like they don't, if they've been around for a decade, 2 decades, 3 decades, that back room is going to have stuff behind stuff that got put there 20 years ago, and it just time. Like they put more stuff in front of it, and they forgot that that's. I mean, it's happened to me in some of my boxes that I've put books away, and I'm like, I'll get to those next week or whatever, and it's 6 months later. And I'm getting to those books and I'm like, oh, I forgot this was here. So it's one of the best things about comic book stores. And I'm hoping bookstores in Japan, like you said, reflect that. It's like you open your mouth and you never know what the person's gonna bring out.
Yeah, exactly. You just got to communicate with them and be a nice dude. Yes. Oh yeah, and spend money.
Yeah, well, those things go hand in hand. Like you can walk into a shop, you could be the guy in the shop that never spends money, and you end up being a Kevin Smith character. But if you spend money and you're nice, good things usually happen. Yeah,
that's one thing I discovered was, communicating with the shop owners, but also before making requests, drop some cash. I don't just walk into a new shop and be like, hey, I'm looking for, and start making a bunch of requests. Can I look at this? Can you open this for me? And, drop some money, just talk with them, be friendly. And then the next time you go back, then make a couple of requests.
or you make a big stack, you pay for it, and then you make the request after that. Too. Yeah, because that's what I'm going to have to do. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, my last one I have here is actually not from recently. It's from last year, the end of last year, and it's the Fist of the North Star 40th anniversary exhibition catalog. Of course, when Brian Moss, Ed Piskor, Danica, the whole crew, we were with Aki and everyone. When the whole crew was here, we went to this exhibition together. I had actually gone the week before by myself once. These were only available at the exhibition. They don't have barcodes on them. I squirreled away a couple copies, threw them in the bottom drawer. These are getting expensive here in Japan, but I am going to sell one of them when I do the Instagram live sale. So if anyone's interested in it, hop in Japan Book Hunter on Instagram for our live sale, and I'll be announcing before that. But my point is that going to exhibitions, going to live signing events, going to art galleries and hitting their gift shops. These are all techniques I use for finding nice exhibition catalogs, signed books, signed art books, because when the artists go through, then a lot of times they'll, sign a small stack for the shop, and some of them don't get bought up. So like I troll gift shops like a mofo. And of course, the amazing exhibitions like Fist of the North Star, or, like I'm going to Maruo Suehiro. There's a Katsuya Terada exhibition going on now I'll be at on Friday. The Daisuke Ichiba exhibition, I go to these and I try to go opening day because the artists will be there setting up, talk to the artists a little bit, exchange business cards. Next thing you know, I'm emailing them and they're sending me pictures of their artwork to buy directly from them.
Oh, it's a great thing. I mean, I think you're definitely not in an untapped market, but you are doing things in a way that a lot of other people don't think to do over there. Whereas here, I think too many people think to do that. So you have to formulate other ways to get the weird and rare stuff. And I, for my part, that's what I try and do.
Yeah. I mean, another thing that I like to do is when there's a new artist coming up, that I'm really interested in, I really like their art, then just follow them, stick with them. Koichi Matsuda, he's a neighbor of mine. He's contributor to Axe Magazine. He just had a big exhibition this last year, but since the beginning of me doing this book selling, I've been buying directly books from him, like little doujinshi, little things that he's been making, like independent press stuff, directly from him. And to see him grow to where he's at now, amazing.
That's awesome.
Amazing.
Well, to see where you've grown too, since I had you on the channel about a year ago.
You too, brother. Brother. I mean, it's both of us know how to hustle, and at the end of the day, it's just fun. I just love doing it. So
I do too. And so for my part, you can find some of these books every 2 weeks live on this channel at West Coast Wednesday, which is my live claim sale. You can always hit me up on my website, westcoastavengers.com, if you're looking for something, or on Instagram. I also have an eBay store, but frankly, if you don't want to pay tax and shipping fees and all that stuff, just hit me up about it.
Yep, and I'm a Japan Book Hunter on Instagram, where we post like a lot of the rare stuff that doesn't go up on the website. Because if it's something rare, then there's no point in even posting it on the website if I'm never going to get it again, you know?
Yeah.
But then JapanBookHunter.com is where we stock most of our original art, our books, art books, VHS, manga. And then, of course, we put out, try to get a YouTube video out at least once, twice a week. So,
yeah. Well, this has been great. And I hope we get to at least do this quarterly, if not some version of somewhat frequently, because I love talking to you. I love hearing what you're finding and seeing what you're finding. And it's nice to be able to share with the people what we're doing and how we do it, because this is not a part-time thing. We're eat, sleep, breathe it.
Yes. I'm in here early in the morning, and I hustle books every day, every dang day, man. And I love it. So
yeah, me too.
Yeah, this is what we do. But you guys will be seeing us again, because while Dave's in Japan, I'm going to make him do some videos in my studio with me. Yeah, let's do it, brother.
Yeah. You're going to show me some of the most horrific manga that you have, and you're just going to watch me react to it.
Yeah, you're going to be digging through these shelves with just pale faced.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. I'm excited just to meet you in person. I'm excited to see what the greatness of Japan can bring and blow my mind with.
It'll be fun, brother. I'm looking forward to it.
Excited. So thank you for joining this. Maybe we're calling it East Meets West, but this is hunting books in 2 different countries. I don't know.
Yes, it is. We'll figure it out. Thanks, everyone. Catch you soon.
Peace.
Matane. All right, guys, thanks for watching. That was fun chatting with Dave. And remember, go to JapanBookHunter.com. That's where we sell all of our rare, weird, and wild books and all things adjacent. And Japan Book Hunter on Instagram, where I post rare stuff that doesn't make it up on the website. And of course, Japan Book Hunter on TikTok and all other social media. Like, subscribe, share, all that fun stuff. You know the deal, my friends. And until next time, matane.